Finally, finished a 40k army. Hello, mate. Yeah, I'm for a game, yeah. Yeah, club, yeah, bring the knights down, mate. Yeah, finish them, yeah. What do you mean you've got a new book?
This video is sponsored by the empiregamestore.co.uk. For exclusive bunker discounts, follow the link in the description below.
Okay, so we've got a new book. I'm lucky enough to have a friend. I didn't get the box set. It's a totally different discussion in itself, isn't it? Feeling the need to have to purchase a expensive box set just to get a Codex. I'm lucky enough a friend had a few copies, so I gave him some pounds for this. Beautiful artwork. Let's have a look. Screamy Faces, that 9th edition is Screamy Facey. Chaos Knights. So, as you know, I built a 2,000 point army, and it was with the idea of being able to continue to play 40k, because I'd sort of fallen out of love with the game. Did my knights, really loved them, took them to the Bristol GT and won 3 out of 5 games with the 93rd Codex, and then they brought a new knight out, so a new Codex out, so here we go. Background and all this sort of cool jazz. I love the artwork, like the Dark Mechanicum style artwork. I think it's absolutely incredible. I'm actually, this is one of the first codices I've actually read all of this bit. There we go. Heraldry of the Fallen. Well, we're not fallen because we're worshipping the true Empire. All the houses in there. Yeah, House Chimera, House Korvax, which is cool, aren't they? Vetrix. I did House Commentis, and hey, there we go. House Commentis, the demon worshippers, the hunters. So yeah, loads of cool background information as you'd expect now in a 9th Codex. So obviously there's been a few new models which we see, pictures of here's a knight. I'm not sure about their heads. I'm not sure about their heads on these. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not sure about the heads. I don't know. As it turns out, my 2K army is still a 2K army, and it's better. So as we go, I do like that though. I can see myself getting one of them. But yeah, let's have a look. So yeah, cool models you'd expect. The rules. So as we know now, they're all spread out, aren't they, into the various different subheadings. Let's have a look at some detachment abilities. A Chaos Knight detachment is one that includes only models of Chaos Knights. So we're just going to assume, as we look through this, that it's a Chaos Knight army. We're not talking about adding a knight or something else. It's just a Chaos Knight army. Pure knight power. Your detachment gains the Traitorous Lance and Fallen Hero abilities. They gain Towering for Traitorous Ambition and Household Bond. War Dogs gain Objective Secured. So Traitorous Lances, it basically allows you to build your army without getting rinsed for command points. Fallen Hero, so it's like you can add Dreadblades in as agents of chaos. I've not done that, other people will, I know that, that's fine. Towering Foe, you count as 5 models when determining control of an objective marker. If you're Titanic, you count as 10 models, which is cool, let's be honest. Traitorous Ambitions, all Chaos Knights with this ability, excluding Dreadblades, and all models in them gain the Traitorous Ambition. Okay. It's not, oh, right, okay, so they have the Iconoclast houses on the Infernal Household Ambitions. So, for example, a House Commentis, which is the best house, unit with the Traitorous Ambition gains Demonic Surge, Traitorous Ambition, because they're in an Infernal household. Iconoclast House, Conquerors Without Mercy. Oof. So Conquerors, so if you're an Infernal household, you gain Conquerors Without Mercy. Each time a model with this ambition fights, if it makes a charge move, was charge, or performs a heroic intervention this turn, then, until the fight is resolved, add 1 to his attacks characteristic and improve the armor penetration characteristic of melee weapons by 1. Wow. As we get into later on, Rampagers are going to utterly wreck face now, and I'll show you why. Infernal Household is a Demonic Surge. So this is very similar, but they've changed this bit. So basically now, you can elect to take a wound. So you can inflict a mortal wound on yourself and roll a d3 on this chart. Or I can inflict d3 mortal wounds and pick 1. And number 1 is Demonic Hunger. Add 3 inch to this model's move characteristic. Number 2 is Demonic Fortitude. Each time an attack is made against this model, an unmodified wound roll of a 1 to 3 fails, irrespective of abilities. Just let that sink in on a 28 wound tyrant. Demonic Power. Select one weapon this model is equipped with. Each time an attack is made with a weapon, add 1 to the attack's wound roll. Household Bonds. So for all the households, they have a dreaded ability and a household bond. So, for example, Haes Commentis gains the Profane Symbiosis bond. If your dread household does not have an associated household bond, you must instead select a fell bond for them. So you can make your own combinations, so on and so forth. Dreaded abilities are something that's pretty cool. And it's like an encroaching darkness on the field. So it's 12 inch from a knight, basically. Again, we'll get onto that later on. They're really, really cool, quite flavoursome. The Dread Households. So they have Traitorous Ambitions, which is what we're going to cover next. We've got Household Bonds, Warlord Trait Stratagems, and Relics of Tyranny. So, I'll go through the houses and sort of discuss them one after the other, so to speak. So, the Dread Household. House Herpetrax. House Herpetrax. Traitorous Ambition is Conquerors Without Mercy. Models gain the Conquerors Without Mercy ambition. Okay? And they gain Household Bond Dauntless. Add 2 to the wounds characteristics of War Dogs. Add 4 to the wound characteristic of Titanic models. Anybody fancy a 32 wound tyrant? Warping Presence is a strategic ploy. Use at the end of the fight phase. Select a Herpetrax model in your army. Roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 6. On 2 to 5, they suffer a mortal wound. On a 6, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. That's not bad for a CP. I know it's very sort of swinging the amount of damage it does, but at least you do something. There's not an issue there where you can actually fail. Warlord Trait, Bow to None. This Warlord can ignore any or all modifiers to their characteristic profile. Okay. Each time this Warlord makes an attack, you can ignore any or all modifiers to hit, wound, or damage. Ooh, wow, okay. Each time this Warlord advances or declares a charge, you can ignore any or all modifiers to... So basically, there's no modifiers whatsoever against that Warlord. That's pretty nasty, that. The Crown of Jedra. Jedethra. So it's an Abhorrent class model or Herpetrax War Dog class model only. Each time a melee attack is made with the bearer, subtract from the attack's hit roll. Stop trying to hit me and hit me. House Lucaris. So they're Conquerors Without Mercy as well. Their household bond is Virtue through Strength. Each time a model with this bond is selected to fight, you can re-roll 1 hit roll or 1 wound roll when resolving the model's attack. That's actually really pretty good. Trample them is their strategic ploy. Using your movement phase, you can select a Titanic model to make a normal move or advance. After this model has moved, select 1 enemy unit it moved across, excluding aircraft, obviously, and roll 1d6 on a 1. If the result... add 1 to the result if the enemy unit contains between 6 to 10 models, and add 2 if it's 11 or more models, 3 to 6, that enemy suffers d3 mortal wounds. On a 7+, they suffer d6 mortal wounds. It just tramples them to death. I really like that. Warlord's trait is Strike First, Strike Often. At the start of the fight phase, if this Warlord is within engagement range of enemy units, it can fight that phase. Okay. So he doesn't actually have to charge in. So if he's in engagement range, he can just fight. That's pretty cheeky, that, to be fair. Relic is the Serpent Strike Core. Select a model with a Demon Breath Melter Gun. So it basically asks for a melter gun. That weapon is now a relic for all relic rules purposes. Delete that weapon's abilities. Add 1 to the weapon's strength. Add 2 to the weapon's damage. Fair enough. Oh dear. House Chimera. So, Conquerors Without Mercy again. They have Rampant Cruelty. Each time a model with this bond makes an attack, if that attack is made against a unit that is below half strength, add 1 to the wound roll. Situational, but you can get units below half strength pretty quick with knights. Fury of Surtur's Wake. So it's 1 or 2 CPs. When a House Chimera model in your army finishes a charge move, Select one enemy unit within an engagement range of that model and roll 4d6. And if the model is Titanic, roll 6d6. For each dice result that equal or exceeds the enemy's toughness, it suffers a mortal wound. For each unmodified roll of a 6, the enemy unit suffers 2 mortal wounds. If it's a War Dog class, they suffer 1. Oh, right, okay, so if it's War Dogs, it costs 1, otherwise it costs 2. That's pretty nasty, that. 6d6, beating toughnesses. So what's your average toughness in the game? What, 4? Something like that? 3d, so you should do 3 mortal wounds, maybe 4 mortal wounds. Is it? Bit situational, I suppose. Warlord trait, Maddened Cries. When an enemy unit is within 9 of the Warlord, it must take a dread test. If the test is failed, they suffer a mortal wound. Wow. So dread, if we just cover that because it'll start getting referred to a bit more now. So a dread test, it's a leadership test basically. Otherwise, it's a leadership test. If you fail it, you fail your dread test. And there's all of these combinations which basically just wreck enemy face. But there's lots of other things in here that say take a dread test and you can situationally take a load of mortal wounds. Fair enough. Relic is the Warpfire Shield. 5+ invulnerable save against melee attacks. Yes. Each time a melee attack is made against bearer on an unmodified saving roll of a 6, the attacker's model suffers a mortal wound. To a maximum of 6 wounds per attacking unit. Wow, okay. That's pretty good. So they just die through hitting you. House Vetrix. They have the Demonic Surge, so we're now getting onto Infernal Households, which is really where it's at. Look at the internet hate coming at me. So, I like Infernal Households, they're like demon worshippers. Okay, so Titankin. So each time a model with this bond is selected to shoot, you can reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, and when resolving that model's attacks. Lovely. Interception Array. Use this strat at the start of your shooting phase when a House Vetrix model from your army is selected to shoot. Until the end of the phase, each time this model makes a ranged attack, you can ignore any or all hit roll and ballistic skill modifiers. Think about that, that's pretty nasty, that, to be fair. Favour of the Dark Mechanicum. So if it's a War Dog, add 1 to its wounds. If it's Titanic, add 2. At the start of each command phase, he regains D3 lost wounds. Oh my god. Wow. The Heretic Power Core. Okay. Add 2 to your move characteristic. Ooh. Each time you make a melee attack, unless the attack is made using the sweep profile, add 1 to the damage characteristic. Oh, wow. So if you take that on a rampage, yeah, and then take the surge, you can add 5, you can move 17 inch with it and charge. Just saying. House Commentis. Yeah, so this is my current favoured house, and I'm not saying I won't try the others, I may do. So Demonic Surge, yeah. Profane Symbiosis. So each time a model with this bond uses Demonic Surge, and this is where this gets really dirty, I could choose to inflict 1 mortal wound and re-roll the D3, or I can choose to inflict D3 mortal wounds and select 2 results to apply. So I can have +3 inch movement on all my big knights, and essentially transhuman for the entire turn until it's my go again, and it costs me D3 mortal wounds. You might think, Tom, that's costing you D3 mortal wounds, but later on in this book, there's a 2+ wound shrug on mortal wounds for 1 night, which I think's filth, but there you go. Encircling Hounds. Use your strat in your... Select 1 House Commentis War Dog class unit from your army that is in strat reserve. That unit can arrive during the reinforcement steps of this phase as if the battle round is 1 higher than it currently is. Wow. So Commentis are all about like encircling and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. The Dread Hunter is a Warlord trait. Once per battle, at the start of your shooting phase, this Warlord can make a killing strike. If it does, select an enemy, a ranged weapon. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is made with that weapon, you can reroll the hit roll, you can reroll the wound roll, and you can add 1 to the damage characteristic. Demonic Strike is the relic. At the start of each of your shooting phases, select 1 enemy unit within 18 for the bearer. Until the end of the turn, each time a ranged attack is made, improve the AP characteristic of that attack by 1, which actually in the previous edition helped me massively in events because it was making, I take the giant flamethrower on my Tyrant and it actually makes it AP 3, which it starts rinsing Marines off board like they're nothing. House Korvax. Demonic Surge again. They're forged in terror. Once per battle at the start of the battle round, you can select one Harbinger ability to be current, or any from the corresponding to the current battle round or any previous battle round. That ability becomes active for every model with this bond in your army, even if every unit from your army does not have a Chaos Knight keyword. Oh, that's horrible. So, let's just talk about these dread abilities for a second. So, the way it works, turn 1, they're basically like a thing that you can pick every turn, but if you pick Doom, you have to pick Doom turn 1. During the 5th and 1st battle rounds, it has to be Doom, so it starts and ends with Doom, as all things do. You can only select Despair if you use Despair or Doom in the previous round. So in round 2, I can say, oh, I can have Doom or I can have Despair. And I can only select Darkness if you selected Darkness or Doom in a previous battle round. So what it's getting at is, you can't just go, oh, that's filth, so I'll just take all that muck, or I'll just take that straight away. So you have to go, right, okay, I'll have Doom, so I could pick Darkness, Doom, or Despair, and then, you know, sort of tally them across. It starts with, while an enemy unit is within dread range of this model, which is 12 inches to start with, subtract 1 from its leadership characteristic. Each time a combat attrition test is taken, subtract 1 from the attrition test. Let that sink in. You could then go and say, oh, actually, so now I'm going to have the same ability because that stacks, and I'm going to add 3 inches to the dread range. So basically, by now you've got 3 big knights. That's covering the whole table. Or you could say, actually, I'm going to have Creeping Dismay. If the enemy has an aura ability, subtract 3 inches from the range of it. If the enemy unit has abilities that are used in the command phase, subtract 3 inches from the range of them. Let that settle in. Geist Storm, so you could say, okay, I'm going to have that, and then I'm going to go for Geist Storm. While an enemy unit is within dread range of this model, each time the unit is selected to shoot, it wishes to declare a charge, it must first pass a dread test. If the test is passed, it can select targets for its shooting attacks or declare a charge. Normally, otherwise, models in the unit cannot make ranged attacks until they target the closest enemy target. Models in the unit that declare a charge against Chaos Knight unit have charge rolls made as if they were halved. So that's pretty good at shutting down, bit situational. Next round, whatever you've picked in these 2 stacks. So you could have, while an enemy unit is within dread range of this model, each time the enemy unit wishes to start performing an action, it must first pass a dread test. If the test is failed, it cannot perform the action. At the start of the morale phase, if that enemy unit is currently performing an action, it must take a dread test. If that test is failed, the current performing action immediately fails. How many forces now are built around basic simple actions, banners, plaguing something, doing this to an objective, and you can shut that shit down hard. 12 inches, 15 inches, -1 leadership, you test, and that unit has done nothing all turn, and now you've just blown it out your ass, pal. That is brilliant. While an enemy unit is within dread range of this model, each time that unit fails a morale test, 1 additional model flees. From before attrition tests are taken, and so if the result of the morale test is at least twice that of the highest leadership characteristic, D3 additional models flee. Pall of Darkness instead, each time a ranged attack is made against this model, if the attacker has more than 12 inches away, subtract from its hit roll. By turn 3 though, my arm is in your face, so there's no point in me having that. I'm having that every single day of the week. Paralysing Insanity. When an enemy unit is within dread range of this model, if that unit has objective secured, it loses objective secured. Let that beast sink in. Whirling Geists. While an enemy unit is within dread range of this model, subtract 2 from its leadership characteristic. Oh dear. Or you could have Veil of Shadows. Each time a melee attack is made against this model, subtract 1 from its attack roll. just wow. So I'm going to go And then, sorry, the last one is, while an enemy is within dread range of this model, each time a combat attrition test is taken, subtract 1 from the attrition test on an unmodified roll of 1 or 2 models. 2 models flee instead of 1. So I'm going to say, I'm going to take that. So within 12 inches to start with, you want -1 of your leadership test. And your combat attrition tests are easy for you to fail. I'm then going to extend that to 15 inches. I'm then going to take that to stop you with getting those final points for things like banners, and I'm going to shut down rod and stuff like that. Then I'm going to go back to that to subtract 2 from leadership test to make that even harder to pass and that harder to pass, and then I'm hitting you with that. I just think that's absolutely horrible, but that essentially is Harbingers of Dread. And it's a bit of an interesting thing, because you only got a few models to manage when you're playing Chaos Knights, so it's nice to have something else to look at and attempt, basically. Yeah, let's go back to the... We did House Vetrix, didn't we? And done House Korvax. So... Oh, there you go. And obviously, you have abilities here to make your own households. I'm not going to go through all of them because they're all a combination of the previous ones, and you can freeze frame now if you want to look at those guys. Now that we're recording in 4K, you should be able to freeze that and review that yourself. Strats. Some of the strats are different, some of the strats are new. Some of the old ones that we relied on are gone, but you can already see the filth that is oozing out of this book is unbelievable. Classics there. Again, you can pause this, guys, if you want to have a good read. I'm just going to pick out some of my favourite ones. Break their lines. So it's 1 CP. Until the end of the fight phase, each time a model makes an attack, if it declares a charge, you add 1 to its attack's hit roll. Situation, I probably won't use that because I'm hitting on 2s anyway, but we'll get to that. Hungry for combat. There's lots of them to boost war dogs, you see what I mean? So it's like, until the end of the fight phase, each time war dog class model army makes a melee attack against an enemy unit, an unmodified roll of a 6 automatically wounds. I don't know if you would need that very often, unless you're like trying to kill gods and stuff like that. Situational probably at best. There's loads of them. I love this. Crushed like vermin. Use the strat in the fight phase when a Titanic Chaos Knight model from your army is selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, each time the model makes a melee attack with its feet, subtract 1 from its hit roll. Yeah, fair enough. If that attack successfully hits the target, unless the target is a monster or a vehicle, the target suffers 2 mortal wounds and this sequence ends. Trail of Destruction's interesting one. Shooting phase, Chaos Knights from your army selected to shoot. Or in the fight phase, when they're selected to fight until the end of the phase, each time that model makes an attack, if the target of the attack is within range of an objective marker, reroll a hit roll of 1. Pretty cool. So you've got Titanic Duels still in there, Death Grips in there, Spiteful Demise is a change as well. It used to be awful, or I say awful, it used to be 8th edition. Now the 9th edition is 1 to 3 CPs. Use this strat when a Chaos Knight model from your army is destroyed. Do not roll to see if that model explodes, it does so automatically. However, if it's a Tyrant class model, on a 4+, the explosion is 3d6. If that model is a War Dog, it costs 1 CP, Abhorrent 2 CP, so that's like your medium knight is Abhorrent, and 3 CP if it's a Tyrant, basically. Arch Tyrant, a Tyrant can literally have 2 Warlord traits, chosen by the gods, corrupted heirlooms, extra. So these are extra Warlord traits, extra characters, so on and so forth. Lots of them that work with help boost war dogs, which is quite cool. So they're going down the route of like 1 knight, I think, is like the overseer, and then like all these war dogs around them. Reap and Rend, Infernal Aegis, so like your Tyrant can stand there strong and just pass on an invulnerable save to everyone around him. Yeah. Now, Favour of the Dark Gods. Now, it's worth noting that some of this is absolute filth. There's no other way of putting it. You have 2, so let's look at one. Blood Shield. So the model gains the Khorne keyword. Once per battle, at the start of the fight phase, the bearer can activate the Blood Shield. When it does, until the end of the fight phase, each time a melee attack is made by the bearer, invulnerable saving throws cannot be made. Each time a melee attack is made against the bearer, invulnerable saving throws cannot be made. So that's basically, I've got a Khorne Ravager, should I say, and, I've got a Khorne Night Rampager, I'm into you, I'm triggering that, and I'm going to kill you before you can do anything anyway. That's the idea there. Custodes, they're dead to that. If this model is a Knight Abhorrent, it loses Psyker, but it gains +1 attack and increases its weapon skill. So you also have, that's a basic ability, and Blood Shield on an Abhorrent class model would be 45 points. It's not cheap, but it also has a favoured ability, and that would trigger if an Abhorrent class model has killed 10 wounds worth of offering, the tally of death, basically. And then he could trigger it again and do that ability one more time. Now, some of them are different. So, for example, if we look at Cursed Rune of Fate, this model gains the Tzeentch keyword. Each time a ranged attack is made against the bearer on a modified 7 throw 6, the attacking model's unit suffers a mortal wound. Favoured ability, this model has a 4+ invulnerable save. Yeah, and there's loads of them, guys. There's so many in here. Some of them are 60 points. The Putrid Carapace, for example. The model gains the Nurgle keyword. Each time an attack with a damage characteristic of 1 is allocated to this model, add 1 to your armour saving throw. Favoured ability, add 1 to this model's toughness. Yes, you could push a knight to toughness 10. Toughness 8, toughness 9 with that. Toughness +1 with the mortal wounds. They're just absolutely brutal. I think you could pretty much make an unkillable Knight Tyrant. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So you've also got things like, these are like your sort of Be'lakor, undivided ones, which are pretty cool. So this model gains the Pantheon keyword. Each time this model loses a wound on a d6, it is not lost. Favoured ability, 5+, it is not lost. Wow. Blessings of the Dark Master. Here we go. This model gains the Pantheon Undivided keyword. Each time an attack is made against this against this model, your opponent cannot reroll the hit, cannot reroll the wound, and cannot reroll damage. Favoured ability, each time an attack is made against this model, an unmodified hit roll of 1 to 3 fails, irrespective of abilities of that weapon. That is horrible. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. And there's lots and lots of options there, guys. You can obviously just scroll back a little bit there and freeze so you can read them. Warlord traits, very, very similar to the old ones. Eager for the kill, add 1 to your advance and charge rolls made with the Warlord, add 1 to his attacks characteristics given the enemy's deployment zone. That's going on a Night Rampage. Harbinger of the Scrap Code. Morale fails, so a morale phase. Pick a vehicle unit with an 18 Warlord, they have to take a dread test. This will otherwise suffer 3 more wounds. And it's mortal wound battery, basically. Warp Haunted Hull. You can attempt to deny it as if you were a Psyker. Knight Diabolus. Add 1 to the Warlord's attacks. Each time this Warlord makes a melee attack, reroll a hit roll of 1, which is nasty, isn't it? Infernal Quest is a personal favourite and goes on my Warlord. Gives him objectives secured. 10 model objectives secured and Knight Tyrant, lovely. Aura of Terror. When within dread range, each time a morale test or dread test is taken on the unit, your opponent must re-roll 1 additional d6 and discard the lowest. You are running away. Interestingly now, we actually have psychic powers. So one of the knights is a Psyker. So Warp Storm Discipline. Winds of the Warp. So Winds of the Warp is a warp charge value of 6. Each time this Psyker loses a wound on a d6, 5+ the wound is not lost. If the result of a Psychic test with 8 or more, while a friendly Wardor class model within 6 this Psyker would lose a wound, roll a d6, on a 6 that wound is not lost, which is pretty cool. Vortex of Terrors. Vortex Terrors has a warp charge of 5. Select an enemy unit with 18. Subtract 1 from their leadership characteristic. Each time that unit is selected to shoot or fight, it must first take a dread test. If it is failed, then until the end of the current phase, reduce the weapon skill and ballistic skill in that enemy unit by 1. The Storm Malevolent. Warp charge of 7. 18 inches of the Psyker. Until the start of your next friendly phase, each time a friendly Chaos Knight model makes a melee attack against that unit, add 1 to the attack's wound roll. An unmodified roll of a 6 attack suffers a mortal wound in addition. Wow. They're like, it just feels like bullying with some of them, doesn't it? Cyclonic Lamentation. is Witchfire. Has a warp charge value of 6. If manifest, every enemy unit within 12 of the cycle must take a dread test. Bearing in mind, some of these dread tests can be at minus lots to your leadership. Each unit that fails the test suffers a mortal wound. If the result of the psychic test was 11 plus, each unit that fails their subsequent dread test suffers D3 mortal wounds. Situational, but could be pretty good depending on how you sort of stack that dread. Coruscating Hate. Yes. Witchfire. Coruscating Hate has a warp chance value of 6. If manifest, the closest enemy unit within 18 of it and visible to the cycle suffers D3 mortal wounds. Then roll 1d6. On a 1 to 2 to 3, the closest other enemy unit within 6 of and visible to the enemy unit suffers a mortal wound. On a 4 plus, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. Spite Squall. It's a malediction spell. Spite Squall has a warp charge of 6. If manifest, select one enemy unit within 18 of the psyche. Until the start of your next psychic phase, that unit cannot fire Overwatch or set to defend. Wow. Keep a Spite Squall tally for this unit, adding 1 to the tally each time a model in that unit is destroyed. At the end of each phase, if that unit is still on the battlefield, roll 1d6 for each mark on the Spite Squall tally. For each roll of 5 plus, the other unit suffers a mortal wound. Wow. That's horrible. Relics. Again, guys, to save this being a 6-hour video, I'm not going to go through every single one. Feel free to pause and have a read. Some nice ones that I like. So the Blasphemous Engine. So each time the bearer loses a wound as a result of a morale rule, the Blasphemous Engine. Each time the bearer would lose a wound as a result of mortal wounds while using a demonic surge ambition, on a 2 plus, that wound is not lost. And he's considered to have double the number of wounds remaining for the purpose of determining that characteristics on its profile. That is horrible. So you could say, I'm going to take a House Commentis Knight Tyrant. I'm going to take D3 mortal wounds every turn to give him +1 toughness and +3 inch move, or +1 toughness and +1 to wound rolls with my weapons. I'm then going to have a 2 plus shrug on those wounds. And I'm also going to take the Nurgle Carapace to make him toughness 10 once I can trigger his abilities. 28 wounds, toughness 10 with a 2-up save. Or a 3-up save in some circumstances, a 2-up save. That's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Other ones, you've got Dreadblade only. There's quite a few that are only for certain types of unit, basically, or model. Like there, for example, the Rune of Nak-Tigra. Dreadblade only. When you select this relic, select one Fell Bond that no models from your army has. The bearer gains the Fell Bond in addition to any Fell Bond it has. Let that one sink in. And there's lots of options there. Helm of Dogs. War Dog model only. Add 1 to the attacks characteristic of the bearer. The bearer has the following ability. Helm of Dogs, Aura. When a friendly War Dog class model within 6 of the bearer, each time it attacks, makes an attack reroll wound roll of 1. So it becomes like a little, I'm really cool and can boost all the War Dogs in my charge. There you go. Chapter approved rules. So we have Purge the Enemy is a fitting challenge. That's an interesting one. So basically, if you select this objective before the battle, after you've selected deployment zones, you can identify which 3 units from your opponent's army have the highest points value. At the end of each battle round, you score a number of victory points to be identified for each identified unit that was destroyed during the battle by a Chaos Knights unit. The number of victory points scored depends on the battle round during which the unit is destroyed. So if you destroy one of those units battle round 1, you score 6 VPs, which is pretty horrible. So if you kill those 3 units in the first 3 turns, that's 15. And let's be honest, Chaos Knights like to do killing. No mercy, no respite. Path of Destruction, I don't like this. Score 1 victory point at the end of the battle round for each of the following conditions met. So you destroy something when you're wholly within yours, in the middle of the table, in their deployment zone. I just think that's way too situational difficult compared to that, when that could just be, what's that, mate? Charging a rampager into that 6 VPs, thanks ever so much. Battle 3 Supremacy, Ruthless Tyranny. If you select this objective, you score victory points as follows, for a maximum of 4 victory points per turn. Score 2 victory points if you control half or more of the total number of objective markers on the battlefield. and one or more Chaos Knight models from your army are within range of those objective markers. Score 1 VP. If half or more of the total number of objective markers on the battlefield are within dread range. Bear in mind that's 12 inches from each Chaos Knight model in your army. Well, that's pretty good. Score 1 VP for every objective marker on the battlefield within dread range of one or more Chaos Knight models from your army. So basically you just spread the dread, basically. Shadow Operations, Storm of Darkness. So you can attempt this action. One Chaos Knight unit from your army can start to perform this action at the end of the morale phase if it is within range of an objective marker. A unit cannot start this action while there are enemy units in range. The action is completed at the end of your next psychic phase, provided the unit performing it is still within range of the same objective marker. If completed, that objective marker is said to have been cursed, and until the end of the battle, whilst a non-chaos unit within 6 of a cursed objective marker, subtract 1 from their leadership characteristic. Score 3 VPs each time a unit from your army completes Storm of Darkness. I like that. And it's also the negative leadership buffs. You can do some serious leadership manipulation here. Crusade rules, I'm just going to skip straight through them, guys. Crusade's a great game, we have fun playing that, but really, yeah. Data sheets, we know what they are, we know what dread tests are, now we've gone through them, we know what Harbingers of Dread do. Here we go. War Dogs, they're all the same, they just have different options for weapons. I think they'd just like to say there's 13 different types of knight in here, rather than saying War Dogs, and here's a massive list of weapons you can use. Feel free to pause this and have a look. They are what they are. So I could probably say War Dog Auto Cannon, 60-inch, heavy D3, strength 7, -2, 3 damage. A Demon Breath Spear, 30-inch, heavy 2, strength 9, -4, D6 damage. And here we are. The Huntsman. They've also got melt guns, just called Demon Breath for some reason, I don't know. Reaper Chain Talon, so you can do strike or sweep. So strike is +4 strength, taking it strength 10, which is lovely. -4, 3 damage. Sweep is strength 6, -3, 1 damage. But you make 2 rolls instead, so they've given them the options now to use the things to actually sweep through and have lots of dice, which is pretty cool. Let's have a look at the Knight Despoiler. He's there, he's got all the weapon options, so on and so forth. They all have Iron Shield, Super Heavy Walker, and Harbingers of Dread. One of the things that we were talking about that start, so Titanic Feet there, for example. So he's got four attacks with Titanic Feet. He could potentially do 8 mortal wounds on a unit. Each time this model fights, if it's equipped with both a Water Strike Claw and a Reaper Chain Sword, it performs hero, it can add 1 to its attacks. I don't know why you'd ever do that when you could just take a Rampager. I believe a Knight Rampager is absolutely horrible. So they've got 5 attacks base now. Strength and toughness of 8. They hit on 2 still. Movement of 12. Movement of 15. Let's be honest, because you're taking that demonic surge. Reaper Chain Sword. So you check it. So strike is strength 14, -4, 6 damage. Sweep is strength 8, -3, 2 damage, but you get to make 3 hit rolls instead of 1. So you've got 15 attacks with that in on 2s. Titanic Feet, again, what you see is what you get. Water Strike Claw has 2 options as well. So you've got Strike, which is ×2 strength, so 16, -3, 8 damage. Wow. And Sweep. So strength 10, -2, 3 damage, and you get to make 2 hit rolls instead of 1. Frenzied Rampage is a bit different now. While a friendly Dread Household War Dog class model is within 9 of this model, each time that friendly model makes a melee attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. So it actually boosts the War Dogs around it, which is quite interesting. It's like Desecrator's Taskmaster ability. War Dogs within 9 of this model, each time make a ranged attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. So that can help War Dogs with range. That helps them in combat. The Knight Abdominant and Tyrant. So the Knight Abdominant it's a standard sort of knight body. Heavy Stubber, Volkite Combuster. So the Volkite Combuster is a 30-inch range, heavy 6, strength 10, -1, 3 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, an unmodified roll wound of 6 inflicts 3 mortal wounds on the target in addition to any normal damage. Dirty. Bale Mace. Strength user, so 8, -2, 2 damage. Each time it fights, make D3 additional attacks. Don't know. Electro Scourge, strength 8, -2, 3 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, make 3 hit rolls instead of 1. I'm having an Electro Scourge every single day of the week. Oh, it's got both of them anyway. Fair enough. Titanic feats in there. Obviously they explode and so on and so forth. This model is a Psyker and can manifest 2 psychic powers in your psychic phase and deny 1 psychic power in your opponent's psychic phase. It knows Smite and 2 psychic powers from Warp Storm. Quite interesting. Knight Tyrant. So 28 wounds again, toughness and strength of 8. Movement of 8, so he's a bit of a slow boy, is the Knight Tyrant, but I suppose you can get him to move 11 if you take the worship the demons and stuff like that. A Brimstone Volcanic Lance. Range 80, heavy D3, strength 16, -5, damage D6 +8, blast. That is disgraceful, isn't it? That's disgraceful. Ectoplasma Decimator. Standard is heavy 2d6, strength 8, -4, 2, blast. Supercharged is heavy 2d6, strength 9, -4 and 3, blast. Each unmodified hit roll over 1. The bearer suffers 2 mortal wounds. Ooh, I don't know. Geist Strike missiles still ignore invulnerable saving throws, and he's got desiccated. Now, on here, I was like, oh no, where's the harpoon? But it's actually an option to upgrade. So we're now onto points values, guys, and weapon profiles. So again, if you want to have a look at those, feel free to pause that. And we'll look at things like the Warp Shock Harpoon. So it's range 18, heavy 1, strength 16, -6, 10 damage. Each time an attack is made with a weapon against a monster or vehicle, add 1 to the attack's hit roll. Each time an attack is made with a weapon is allocated to a model, it suffers 3 mortal wounds in addition to any damage. Yes. And that, glossary in the back, that is Codex Chaos Knights. I hope you've enjoyed that, guys. Bit of an in-depth flick through. This is my 40k army, so this is why we've done a bit of a let's have a look at a Codex more in depth. And there'll be games coming up. I've got some games lined up already. Try them out. I'm going to try and get my revenge on Gyp's Custodes at some point. And we're taking them to tournaments as we go up and see how we get on for the year with Chaos Knights. So thanks for watching. Do subscribe for more. Stay well wherever you are in this world. Stay safe, stay well, and happy hobbying.